Liam asked me to come and talk to you because we've done a project, and the project was, I suppose by most people's account, a successful one. But I had never done anything like it before. So I met a huge amount of challenges, which might be interesting in you to hear, because this is the kind of the wrap-up presentation. We had to improvise a great deal. So listen, bear that in mind as we're going. And when you see a way that we did improvise, ask a question, because I think that'd be the best way to go through it. Don't save your questions if you can't. I mean, don't feel you need to save them until the end. Okay. The title of the talk is Inhabiting Landscape, Sharing Community. And you can't do one really, I think, without the other. And we could not have pulled off this project without the community. And for us, as you see, my wife and I moved back here from California in 2000. We're blow-ins to this area. We'd never lived in Kilkenny before. So the project that we undertook is really a form of embedding, exploring landscape and embedding in community. I have been working for about 30 years as a visual artist, working mostly in landscape. But I began working with my hands as a stonemason. So I'm just showing you this landscape has been my preoccupation, making site-specific works in landscape. This particular piece is in Counihan in County Mayo and was built as part of Mayo 5000. This is a piece, it's a beehive structure inside, it's all dry stone, and this piece is in Allies in West Cork. This piece I've chosen particularly, I was living in California at the time, and this is in the city of San Jose, downtown, and it was to commemorate, was the word they used, the Costanoan Olonian Indians of Central California, who had apparently disappeared. And they had kind of blended in with the Mexican-American community, and now they were trying to re-establish their identity. And the city was obliged to actually build the sculpture. I don't think it had much enthusiasm for it, but it wanted to make the sculpture, and I was fortunate enough to receive the commission. But when doing it, I worked closely with Native American people who were trying to re-establish their identity in the 21st century. This was 2000, 2001. What I found fascinating about this was that this was the people who had lost their link to landscape, and they'd lost that link through language. They'd lost their language, they'd lost their naming of places, so they could not, that particular, I realized how important that link of the oral tradition and the naming of place was when making this work. And that informed the project, which is the Townlands project. My wife and I moved back here, as I said, in 2000, and we moved to North Kilkenny. And this is the landscape that you see from our house. It's the plain of Kilkenny, Kilkenny in the mid-distance, and Counihan in the background. We built our house, we built our studios, we raised two big dogs, and then I started to walk them across the landscape. And while doing that, I got to meet my neighbours. I asked their permission to walk the land, and then when I would come back, I would start talking about what I discovered, and I would learn that all the fields had a name. But I also realised that the young people no longer knew the names. People in their 30s and 40s were too busy. It was the older generation who still retained them. And because of what I discovered in California, I just thought it was really worth engaging in a project which sought to retrieve and to record those names. More importantly, I wanted to make a work of art that centred out of living in the landscape. Most of my work had been to commission county councils, cities, whatever. But anyway, you come up with a theme, they give you the money. This was self-generated. How was I going to be able to do the work I wanted to do? How was I going to raise the money? I applied to the Arts Council, and the Arts Council didn't go for it. So we decided to go ahead in any event. So my wife and I went out and we started taking photographs of the landscape. I would take the photographs and my wife began to draw. So we photographed the farmers at work. We photographed historic monuments. This is the ditch in Rath. This is Sanford's Court Castle. Fairy Thorn. Tri-Stone Building, Neighbour at Work. And of course, everywhere in the landscape during the Celtic Tiger, the digger bucket, silage bales, and then the place names. We wanted to get the community involved to feedback and provide us with the names of their fields. We didn't know how to do that, so we thought the best way to do that would be to have an exhibition. Kilkenny Arts Week in 2009, we decided that would be our target. But where were we going to have it? Kilkenny Arts Festival were very, very keen on the project. They could see the quality and the intention, I think, appealed to them. But we knew that if we had that exhibition in the city, the people we were making it for wouldn't come. So it was imperative that we created in Johnswell Community Hall. Now that presented a challenge. It is the ugliest building. It is basically a badminton hall with no insulation, a gallery up on top where I've taken that photograph from, a small meeting room, 2 toilets and a kitchen. The acoustics inside in the hall are abominable. So, and as you can see, you've got this kind of mint ice cream paint on the walls. So I didn't know what to do. Would I go to the expense of painting the walls white? But then I'd have to repaint them. Didn't have that kind of money, didn't have that time, time wasted. So the chairs that you see there are, you'll see in the next, that's my layout for the exhibition. I realized that the only way I was going to pull this off was by having the hall entirely in darkness. And that when you went in, then you would find the things that I wanted to show specially lit within their own spaces. So there you have it. Basically what we did is we created a flat pack white cube. And we made it out of election posters. The 4x4, it's a great way to use Phil Hogan and all these other people. and if they're doing nothing for you, well, put them to some use. And you have the pleasure of turning them to face one another. So that's the flat pack. Now, I've taken this here on a slow timer, so there's a lot of light coming off the screen. What we did was, I put a projector on top of the flat pack gallery, and that's projecting onto the end wall. The images were all in black and white, because if I showed the images in colour, people would refer to them as snaps. But when I showed them in black and white, they had this exotic quality, and people suddenly looked at their landscape in a different way. People look at old photographs in a different way than they look at contemporary ones. So that's what I wanted, just to give it that something unique about the place. The flat pack gallery was made out of 2x2s, and you can see them there along the top of the roof where the light leaks. What we did then was, we got a large sheet of silage plastic and we ran it over the top so there were no light leaks at all. So when you walked in, the room was entirely dark except for the light leak at the door of the flat pack, and then this little house structure here, which you'll see in a moment, is also lit internally. So they were the only light sources within the room. And that's the flat pack inside. We had to be very, very clever when we did that, and that we had to pre-plan exactly what height we were going to hang the work inside, so that I had studs suitable to take the hangings, the fixings. That, you know, that kind of planning is pretty crucial. And look, inside it's a pretty classy little space, and we wired it, you know, running it down off the rafters from the fluorescent lights above, and it was really a surprising success. All the edges were taped. It did not look tacky at all. This is some of the work that was exhibited beside it. It's a drawing of by my wife of a neighbour's cow. And this is a little piece that I made called The Shelter of the Past. Again, imagine the space is completely dark. You wouldn't see the walls around it. And that was lit, again, internally. And on the inside of that, all the fields of the local landscape were drawn on the inside. But you couldn't access it because the windows were sealed off with perspex. Children loved this piece. Then in the process room, I should call it the community room, we call it a process room. We got a series of A0 maps, the 25-inch ordnance survey, of all the townlands in the parish. And we invited everybody who came to the exhibition who had land in the parish to write the names of their fields on the maps, or if they didn't have time, to leave their name and address so that I could call to them over the winter months. And that's what I did. And that became a huge social process where you called into kitchens, and farmers gave you the names of the fields, and we had copious cups of tea. And then it was also very moving, because some of the people who had the fields were living alone. They'd lost a brother, they'd lost a sister, and the winters were long. They enjoyed the company, and frankly, they expected the company to return. It was, it is doing something like this is an active community as well. It's rewarding in that sense, but it's also very, very time-consuming. On the opening day for the Arts Festival exhibition, still in 2009, Catherine Marshall, who is from Stonyford in County Kilkenny, and at the time was first head of collections at the Irish Museum of Modern Art, she came down to open it. We borrowed speakers. Everything was given to us. The speakers, the tannoy system, everything was given voluntarily. We didn't have to pay. A huge crowd turned out, and the wonderful thing was that it was a wonderful mix. People came out from the city, and our neighbours and members of the farming community all came. So it was a wonderful blend, and that would not have happened if we had it in the city. They would not have come in. So there's just a sample of the crowd. This is Mary Butler, the arts officer, and Catherine after the presentation. And Mary Butler was very useful, I should say useful, was very supportive of the project. Mary granted us an Arts Act grant award to work with a theatre company. And here is one of the heroines of the village, Josie Manning, who supplied all the sandwiches. Cakes were baked, sandwiches were made, and copious pots of tea, and there's not a bottle of wine or a canapé in sight. It was a great, great day. And the cakes and the sandwiches were all made by the community just because they wanted to be part of this. So it did get the thumbs up from everybody. So in 2010, we decided that we'd try and do more work. Derval Ledbridge, the Heritage Officer for Kilkenny County Council, really liked the work that we've been doing with the field names. So she wanted us to, I suppose, get more professional about it. I had never really done this kind of work, gathering of data and all that kind of thing, as it should be done before. And so Derval was a great guide. So she supported the project, and we worked the same way, far more on a heritage basis, but in tandem with the creative art process as well. We created a website. People don't, we create a website, it sounds a great thing when you're making a proposal, but I found that a lot of people don't. Certainly the people that I was dealing with, my target people, they don't tweet, they don't do websites, but younger people do, so it was certainly good to do, and it was a great way for us to get our information out and simplify it. As I said, Mary Butler, the arts officer, gave us an Arts Act grant to work in the local school. Very, very important, I think, to work in the school, because when you're working with the children, in some sense you bring the parents in with what you're doing. So we went down to the local library, and we got the 1936-1938 Bailidge's folklore collection for this particular school. Very, very bad collection, full of pots of gold and leprechauns, but there's lots of it, but a few ghost stories in there. We gave this to the teachers, and then they started to work up stories with the children. Gypsy, my wife, got a very, very large piece of canvas, which we primed and divided up into 60 squares. There are 59 pupils in the school, and we gave each pupil a square to create their own field. So here they are at work in the school. The school were very, very supportive of the project. Here we are helping them make the work. Some of the work is very, very vibrant and wonderful. And here's the finished banner. So that banner is 8 feet by 8 feet. And that's now actually, in a sense, it's a piece of public art that was a byproduct of something. It's hanging permanently in the school. We didn't anticipate what we would do with it. But it was just, we were more interested in the process. But the product has got an ongoing life in the community, and it'll be there until the bugs get it. So we also got a grant to work with Barnstorm Theatre Company. And what we wanted them to do was to come in and to work with the children to devise a play based on the local folklore. So here's Anna Galligan, the outreach officer from Barnstorm, beginning to devise plays with the various classes in the school. Started to get very, very lively, very, very energetic. And then we continued that and brought it into the hall. The acoustics were abominable. You could hardly understand what people were saying. But you can see the banner there on the back. Again, we had to kind of improvise a stage out of what the community already had. As far as community halls goes, Johnswell wouldn't be as well equipped as others I've been to, but you can still do a remarkable amount with very little if you box clever. So this on St. John's Night in 2010, we performed the two plays, and we had a huge audience, and the kids performed in front of the banner. And I had borrowed from Barnstone, because the lights are so bad in the hall, you know the garish sharp light. I had borrowed theatre lights, so that during the process the light was soft within the hall, and it was only when people were coming in and going out that the light was harsh, just to create that atmosphere. Again, they were given to me at no cost. It was just asking people, because if they like what you're doing, they'll help you. And again, this is one of the pieces, the Scary Feast in the Spooky Field, was done with torches. So we also then, during Heritage Week in the same year, wanted to have an exhibition where we would show the maps with all the field names that we had done on it, more drawings, plus a film that we had made. So this is my wife continuing to draw the local livestock. It's a photograph of mine. It reminds me of prehistoric cave paintings. And then we made a film. When we were working in the school, Gypsy took a portrait of every child, and I recorded them saying a field name. So we had 60 children and 60 field names. And then I went round to all the farmers and older people, and I took their portraits and recorded them saying a field name. And then we made a little video out of that, tied in with photographs of the local landscape and sounds of the local landscape as the soundtrack. And we, in the darkened hall, that's what we showed during Heritage Week. Nothing else, just some rigged seating, a large screen, and that film. The film ran 10 minutes. These are some of the maps with the names on them, which we exhibited in the meeting room. We got lots of names, surprising amount of them in Irish. This is only 2 miles from Kilkenny, again a surprising number in Irish. Now this proved a fascinating hit with the local community. They were really, what was interesting about this, there's a kind of, Holly was talking earlier about commonage. This was a real process of commonage, because all this property is privately held, and the names really mean only something to the family, unless the name predates enclosure and the forming of the fields. But everybody was prepared to share. And it was wonderful. All the farmers came down, and they were looking at the names of the next farm, seeing if they remember them. It was a very special occasion. Leader, I'd be interested in talking about funding as well, if you have any questions about that, because that was hugely challenging in this project. And I was doing most of this on my own. I'd never navigated it before, and it was a huge headache. I couldn't have done it working with Leader, because you have to have matching funding without the assistance of the local community. And it was fraught at times, you know, because I'm not great at paper, to be frank, and you really have to know your paperwork for Leader. So I wanted to have a seminar, or I prefer to use the word a public conversation, in which I would invite people to come to the hall to talk about what makes their home place unique, and then invite the people from Johnswell to respond about what they found or find in Radcool Parish, what they find unique. So I made a flyer. I didn't go to a designer. I took a template off the computer, simple replacement, using photographs that you've already seen. We made our own flyer. We posted it out with labels, and I budgeted that into the Leader grant. Huge crowd. Paddy Duffy from University of Maynooth, historical geographer. Helen Carroll from Here to the Ground was the moderator. Kerry Hardy, the poet, who was also one of the contributors. Carmen Commons, the poet. Dervla Murphy, the well-known travel writer, was supposed to attend, but a friend of hers died the day before, and she didn't attend. Huge success on the night. From that, we made a book. We published a book called Townlands, the Habitation, in which all of the contributors have written more at length about what they spoke about on that particular night. We had more cups of tea, we had more cake, and we had a great evening. I have copies of that book with me. The book is available in all bookshops. You should get it while stocks last. Great Christmas present. That is about it. I probably missed some things I wanted to say, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.